I remember as a kid being absolutely terrified of stinging nettles, because when you brush against them, all those little stinging hairs release a combination of chemicals from formic acid through to histamine and probably a few other things as well. So it does give you a little bit of a zing, but the older I've got, I've actually started to feel it more as a tingle than a pain. So I don't know, maybe I'm just getting a little bit insensitive, but the Romans used to deliberately sting themselves, and they used to call it urtication, and they used to do it in order to stimulate circulation and to keep themselves warm. So if you were a Roman legionary soldier that had been sent from southern Spain to this part of Wales 2,000 years ago, you probably would have been a little bit happy for anything that might have warmed you up, even if it's stinging nettles. Now, these things are packed with nutrition. They've got more iron than spinach. They contain quite a high protein content. They contain a whole range of vitamins and minerals, and they've been used as a survival food for, well, thousands of years. There are some very good accounts of people using nettles during the Irish potato famine. So the whole country was starving as a result of the failed potato crop. A lot of people were emigrating to America at that time. And for those who stayed behind, many of them owed their lives to this plant, which is a real common roadside herb that can be found just about anywhere. And it's packed with nutrition, and definitely one worth collecting. So I'm collecting them today to make my favorite dish, which is wild garlic and nettle soup. And I'm just collecting the very tips. So rather than collecting the whole plant, what I'm collecting is just the very, very top leaves, just that little cluster that you can find at the top. And the way I pick them is to reach down from above, grab them at the base and pull straight up. So you end up with that lovely little cluster of leaves like that. That goes in the basket. So the great thing about picking them this way, you don't get stung very much either. So you're avoiding brushing against all those stinging hairs on the upper part of the leaf. So you're just kind of grasping it just underneath the tip there, pulling straight up. A little bit of a tingle, but nothing to worry about. Interestingly, urtication had another resurgence during the Victorian era, where certain disreputable boudoirs in East London used to offer a service of urtication to their discerning customers. I don't know why you'd pay for it when you can do it for free. Yeah, there's something with the colour of nettles. Nothing is that green. There's a particular green that you get with nettles that you just don't find anywhere else, and that's why it goes so well in so many different recipes. Just very fresh. Okay, so once we've got a good amount of these, we can start to think about our wild garlic. So I'm just throwing a few more into the basket here. Now, as well as being an incredible source of nutrition, stinging nettles are also reputed to have medicinal properties, particularly as a natural anti-inflammatory. So a lot of people take nettle tea or deliberately sting themselves in order to relieve the symptoms of arthritis, rheumatism, and joint pain. So that's one use. And also as a tea, it's a powerful, very effective detoxifier. So fantastic on a hangover. I'm just going to grab a few more from here. Now, my technique, you see me picking them like this and then giving them a little flick, and that's to get any bugs out of them. So people always laugh when they see me collecting them and kind of flicking like that just to get any bugs out. But, you know, if you don't want to leave the bugs in, it's an extra source of protein. So the way I pick them, I reach down from above, grab it firmly just underneath the base of the top leaves, and I pull straight up. So I'm just collecting that small cluster from the top there. Right, I think we've got almost enough nettles. So for my wild garlic and nettle soup, that's looking quite good. So the next thing we need is a nice pile of wild garlic. Off this way. And this will do it. So we've got a really nice patch of wild garlic here, so Alium ursinum. It's also known as ramsons in some parts of the country. And it's a fantastic plant. It's not around for a very long period, so from about the end of February through to kind of towards the end of April is about the window of opportunity for this plant. But you can eat every single part of it. The leaves, when they first come out, are probably the best to begin with. And then shortly after that, you start to find these little flower buds. So they start to pop out, and these can be fried and they're delicious. When the flowers themselves open, they make a great garnish for salads and things like that. And in a survival situation, you can even dig up the roots, which are a fantastic, tasty resource as well. But it's illegal to dig up wild plants by the roots under normal circumstances. And then finally, once the flowers have died back, you're left with the little seed pods, which look like little green peppercorns, and they are packed with flavour. So they're an awesome end to the season. So you've got quite a long window to use this plant. And it's incredibly good for you. Garlic, like all of the alliums, are fantastic for your blood, purifying your blood. They're a natural antiviral, so help to boost the immune system. And they taste absolutely amazing. So I use them in loads of things. This time of year, I'm collecting ramsons and wild garlic all the time. So I'm just going to grab a good pile to go in my soup. There is one thing you need to be a little bit cautious about though. So the plant itself is quite distinctive, and if you're in any doubt, you just have to rub your fingers and smell it. And if it smells of garlic, it almost certainly is. So that's probably your best indicator. But there is a plant that lives in amongst it, and I spotted one over here somewhere. Here it is. This is the Arum maculatum, so often known as lords and ladies, and I'm going to show you the difference. So that's a ramson leaf, and that's an Arum maculatum. You notice that arrowhead shape, so it's, instead of being pointed at both ends, it has this very distinctive arrowhead profile. It also has a sort of a maze of ribs at the back of the leaf, which the ramson doesn't have. So it's well worth knowing which plant you're working with. This one is edible, delicious, and absolutely wonderful. This one is packed with oxalic acid, and if you eat it, it's very likely to cause blistering and burns to your mouth. So best avoided. Just remember the two. Okay. So we're getting somewhere now. I'm going to collect a load more wild garlic. And I'm also going to collect some of these buds. So what I like to do with these buds is to just fry them in a little bit of sesame oil, and they taste amazing. And I just sprinkle them on the top of my soup or on a salad, and they are absolutely delicious. So I'll get a few of those as well. Now this is Alium ursinum, so this is the plant we're looking for, commonly known as wild garlic or ramsons in some places. So it's pointed at both ends, and if you are in any doubt, you can just rub your fingers on it, smell them, and if it smells of garlic, it almost certainly is. So that's a pretty safe way to identify wild garlic. Now the problem is there is a plant that grows in amongst the wild garlic, which can be a little bit problematic, and I'll just show you it now. I think I saw some, yep, around here. And that is this plant here. So this is Arum maculatum, commonly known as lords and ladies. And at this time of year, you can often find this plant growing in amongst the wild garlic. Now, this plant here contains immense quantities of oxalic acid, which in small amounts is fine, because that's what you get in rhubarb, which gives rhubarb its zing. But in the quantities you find it in this plant, it's likely to cause blistering of your tongue and lips. So definitely best avoided, but quite easy to identify. The Arum maculatum has this very distinct arrow shape, whereas the Alium ursinum is pointed at both ends. So this one is bad, this one is good. Don't get the two mixed up and you should be fine. So this is the flowers once they fully open up. Beautiful white flowers, like a little explosion of stars, gorgeous. So I use those to put on salads and all sorts of things. The whole plant is edible, so it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to grab a few more leaves just to make sure I've got enough. I think that should do it. So now it's back to Camp Dryad and we'll start doing some cooking. There we are. Just want to get a good hot flame for this. Nice quick cook. So I'll just build the fire up a little bit more. Well, that's the kettle on for the stock. So once that's done, we can start cooking. But we still have some prep to do over here. Now, the first job is just to slice up these small potatoes into thin slices, just so they cook quicker. I don't bother taking the skin off these very small ones. They're pretty good anyway. If you only have large potatoes, you might want to peel them. So the potato is just there to thicken the soup up. If you haven't got that, you could possibly use some rice flour or maybe some cornstarch, just something to give it some thickness, but potato works really well. So that's the potatoes done. Next thing is just a splash of oil into the pan. Make sure that's the base is covered. And we're just going to fry these off very, very quickly. So I'll take these over to the fire. There we go. That's the potatoes on the fire. And now I need to slice the onion. Oh, I'm going to lose all my wild garlic at this rate. Okay. Now, the next step you don't actually have to do, but if you want a smoother soup, it's definitely a good idea. So the nettles have a stem here which is full of quite coarse fibres. They're so coarse that we use them to make rope and string. So I always remove that for cooking just by snipping just below the leaves about there. So if you can see where I am here, and then we've got all of this fibrous material removed. So I just do that with all of them. It takes a little bit of time, but it is worth it. So I'll do that quickly now. It just gives you a much smoother soup if you can remove all of those stems. And interestingly, nettle stems are probably the strongest, certainly the strongest wild fibres that you can find in the UK. And we use them to make string, ropes, and even clothing that's very, very versatile and extremely strong. So I'm just going to make up about half a litre of chicken stock. So I'm using these Knorr stock tubs, which I think are really, really good. There we go. I'll just give that a quick stir, mix it up. Now, I won't throw it all in one go. I'll just put a little bit at a time because I don't want the soup to be too runny. So I'm just snipping off all the nettle stems now, which makes for a much smoother soup. Some people think this is a bit of a faff, but it does make it a lot better, so I think it's worth the effort. So the potatoes and onions are softening up nicely. Next job is to add the nettles. So here we go. Now these develop such a vibrant green colour as they cook. I'll just give these a quick stir. Now this is the point, I'm always tempted to add more liquid because I think, oh, it's it's looking a bit dry, but don't be too quick to add extra liquid at this point, because it does definitely surprise you how much liquid is still there in the potatoes. So that looks okay. Okay, now nettles just need a minute or two. Okay. Ah, right, here we go. So it's time for the garlic. We'll just chuck that in, no ceremony, and it will wilt down. It looks like I'm putting an enormous amount of garlic in, but it does break down very, very quickly. That's looking good. And still, I don't feel the need to add too much liquid just yet. That seems to be okay. Maybe I'll just add a small splash. I may regret it, but we'll see. There we go. All right, you can see these wilting down beautifully now, so I'll just fold those in. Now, this just needs a few more seconds. You really don't want to overcook this garlic, because that delicious garlicky flavour diminishes very, very quickly when it's cooked. It's incredible how much flavour actually disappears when you cook all this garlic up. So just give it a quick, just sort of reduce it down just a little bit. That's starting to look right. Stir it around. Those colours are looking amazing. Smoke's getting to me. Oh. There we are. I think that's done. So I'm going to quickly take that off the heat. And bring it over here ready for blitzing. And in the meantime, I have all these flower buds. So these are the flower heads before they fully open. And I'm going to fry these up on the fire. Okay, so we have the lithium power pack. This is great. So it's the EB55 Bluetti, and this gives us 240 volt power in the woods, which is superb. It means I can use a normal blender. So I've got the food here. So it's not too wet, which is great, because that should turn into just the right texture of soup that I'm looking for. But I need to blend the whole lot up now. So this is where the Bluetti comes in. Here we go. Starting to look good. We're losing the light quite quickly here. That should do it. Okay, so let's put that aside. Let's get this in the bowls. Okay, all set. Those colours are amazing. Nothing has that intense green in quite the same way that nettle and wild garlic together have. It's really an incredible colour. I can just feel the nutrients from here, you know. I always tell people this is so good it should be illegal. You sell it by the gram. That's looking great. Okay, let's get the last little bit out of there. And I'm going to make this look absolutely incredible. And I've also got those flower buds frying up over there, so I'll sprinkle those on top, and this is going to look great. So let's start with the cream. It's always a challenge when you're in the woods trying to keep things clean. You get bits of twig and pollen and all sorts of yummy things falling into the ingredients, but that's all part of it. Maybe even a few bugs. There we go, that's looking great. Next, a few chili flakes. And some black pepper. And a little bit of Himalayan pink salt. Okay, nearly there. This salt's been in the woods since last autumn. It's got a little bit damp. It's not coming out very easily. Nearly there. And then the final part, I've got those flower buds ready to go on top, so I'll bring those over and we're done. There we go. So this is the toasted flower buds. I'll just sprinkle a few of those on there. And that is that. So this is my signature dish, wild garlic and nettle soup, made over a fire in the woods. Now, admittedly, I'm using an electrical power pack, so without that, you are probably going to struggle to make a soup like this. You could potentially chop up all the ingredients. Okay. Well, that's my wild garlic and nettle soup cooked over a fire. Now, I'm Andrew Thomas Price of Dryad Bushcraft, and if you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and tell your friends. That is amazing.